Hello, everyone. I've developed an unfortunate habit of filming most of these in the middle of the night, which you would never be able to tell because I live in a cave. This is coming out much later than its various counterparts on other channels, but I went to the bother of compiling a list, so I might as well tell you guys about it. Last year, I accomplished a few things. One of those things, as most of you know, was starting this channel and setting out on a path of being creative every day, which possibly explains why I am way more active both on my blog and on YouTube. But another thing I did was reading 99 books. Yep, 99. So close to a satisfying 100, but since I read those 99 books, which are a ton of books, I thought I'd share some of the highlights with you. 2017 favorites, if you will. Although hardly any of these books were actually written and released in 2017, so it's a bit of a misnomer, but hey. Here we go. Should also note these are no particular order, like not even read order. Thornhill is probably included because I read it super recently, but I loved it. It goes by super quickly, even though you feel like you're taking time to really inspect the pictures and figure out what narrative is going on. There are two stories being told in this book, but they are connected. One story is set in the present day, and it's told through India ink drawings about this girl who just moved into a new town and she can see this creepy abandoned house from her bedroom window. And as the story goes on, it's kind of sad because I think her mother's dead and her father's never around. The only sign you see of him are dishes in the sink and a note saying he'll be late home from work or won't even be home at all. The other story is diary entries from 1982. I didn't make a note of that. That was silly of me. But I think it was 1982. And it's about a girl who's in some kind of group home and how another girl in the group home is bullying her and doing truly traumatizing things to her. I should note this is a super creepy book. It's a ghost story. This book deals with some pretty heavy issues in addition to the whole ghost story aspect of it. So I wouldn't let super young readers read it. If you have a sixth grader who just really loves the creepy stuff, give them Thornhill. Or, if you're in your 20s or 30s and want something kind of spoopy, here you go. Now, I don't have any kind of anxiety disorder. I do have anxieties, but I don't find them crippling, usually. So I understand in a very small way the invasive thought spirals that happen in this book. Turtles might be my favorite John Green book yet. No, I haven't read all of them, but I've read the top tier ones, I guess you could say, if there are tiers in John Green books. Before I read Turtles, Paper Towns was my favorite book. I know everyone's gonna say Fault in Our Stars is the best John Green book. You're wrong. Probably one sign that I was super excited about this book was I broke my carefully structured system of reading library books before they're due to read this book. This is a book I need to own. In fact, anyone who's trying to figure out gifts for me in the future, just about any book in this video will work. But if there's any book you'd go for, it's this book. Or, the third book in the Kingslayer, Kingkiller? Or the third book in the Kingkiller Chronicles, if Patrick Rothfuss ever finishes it. This was my first experience with reading Brandon Sanderson, and it will be far from my last. Honestly, I don't know why I waited so long. I also read Well of Ascension and finished it in December, and wow. Don't read that one if you're having a rough time. Well of Ascension is heavy, and not just because it's over 600 pages long. I actually talked about the Final Empire in my first Rambling and Rambling video, which I'll put a link in the descriptions if you haven't watched it. And I really enjoyed it. I haven't encountered too many fantasy series that have the level of world building that the Mistborn series has. The Kingkiller Chronicles would be one of them, and of course, The Godfather. Really just the work of the father of all modern fantasy, The Lord of the Rings. I loved this book so much. I could really devote an entire video to this book, or rather this series, because I'm reading the second one right now. I started it today and I'm already just... I was a good girl and made myself wait pretty long to read this book. I'm only reading it slightly out of order, along with the 6 other books I'm actively reading right now, which are only a portion of the 14 books I'm reading right now. No, I don't have a problem. I don't know what you're talking about. In this book, there are just levels of intricacy just in the design of the book, not even in the actual writing. Though the writing and the story are fairly intricate. In the first book, the main character starts just in a panic flipping through pages in a book. Well, the book. As she's flipping through the book, she gets paper cuts on her fingers and starts bleeding and is still paging through the book, so she, smudges blood all over the pages. And so when you flip the page from when that happens, there are finger marks printed on the page like they're in blood. Now, they're just in black ink because fingerprints that look like actual bloody fingerprints would be kind of traumatizing to find in a book, honestly. But it's the details like that that really make the book stand out, as well as what I refer to as the secret message poem that is printed word by word next to random page numbers throughout the book. If you read these books, have a notepad with you. I went on a beautiful journey into the Grishaverse this spring, and Six of Crows is by far the best story told in that world to this date. I haven't read The Language of Thorns yet, but it's on my shelf. It'll probably be the next book I read. Six of Crows is literally a heist movie, but in a world with magic. Is that a good description? It's glorious. Dirk Gently's holistic detective agency. Doesn't sound like a real thing because it's not, but oh, I wish it could be. This is a book by Douglas Adams, who famously wrote Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which if you've never read that one, shame on you. Go read it now and figure out why the answer to life, the universe, and everything is 42. There's actually a TV show based on this book. The actual story that gets told on the TV show isn't the same story of the book, which is actually better because then I'm not gonna get mad at BBC for changing details of a fabulous book. The only argument I have with it is that I don't have cable, so I can't watch the second season that's actually airing, or that just aired, I guess. I watched the first season and it was amazing. Dirk Gently is just ridiculous in true Douglas Adams fashion, so it's the best way possible. The False Prince is the start of a really good series, especially for school-age kids. It's not technically fantasy. It's set in an unnamed medieval-ish world, so kind of fantasy, just without dragons. I flew through this book and the 2 that come after it in less than a week, if that tells you anything. The story is just super engrossing. It's told in first person, and the entire time you're reading, you get the sense that the narrator isn't telling you everything. Because he's not. And when the twist happens, it's just everything makes sense now, and it's just great. So, I watched the Hayao Miyazaki movie before I even realized there was a book, Howl's Moving Castle. Generally, I have one rule: read the book before you watch the movie. But since there were some pretty major differences, I'm not really sure order of consumption would really matter in this case. If you're someone who gets irritated at movies for being different from books, I'd recommend the movie first because it is a visually stunning movie and it's well done. It didn't suffer for the details being changed. I love the whimsy of this book and it's got some really great positive messages in it as well. Without spoiling too much, the main character is this girl named Sophie who works in a hat shop. She doesn't have very much confidence in herself or her appearance, and she has a younger sister who is gorgeous and is always flirting with the boys, and you can figure out where that one's going. Sophie, I'm not entirely sure how, because it's been a while since I've read this book, gets herself cursed by a witch to look like a little old lady, so she turns into this really strong character. I don't want to go into too many details because I just want you to go and read it yourself. It literally took me until I was compiling this list to realize why this book reminded me of Treasure Planet. Don't ask me why, it should be pretty obvious. They're set in similar time eras and they're both about seafaring vessels, but instead of actually being seafaring vessels, they're spaceships. I don't know how you could get much cooler than that. Basically, it's the Regency era with spaceships and colonies on Mars. So, in a lot of ways, Arabelle of Mars is like reading Jane Austen's space fic, I guess. Jane Austen pirate space fic, really. And if that sounds ridiculous to you, then don't read it. I can respect that. But if that sounds amazing, go find it. It won't disappoint. So there you have it. A few of my favorite reads from last year. If you've read any of these books, let me know what you thought. If you have reading suggestions for me after seeing this video, also let me know. I'm always looking for new books to read. If you want to hear about some other books I have read recently or I'm currently reading, or that didn't quite make the cut for this video for whatever reason, you can check me out on Goodreads. I'll put a link in the description for that. Or, just check out my blog. I talk about books a lot over there. And if you liked this video, you know what to do. Thanks for listening to me ramble, guys. Bye.